त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापं हर हर दुःस्वप्नं विध्वंसय विध्वंसय
Gurubhyo Namaha. Om salutations to the Gurus. Namaste and a very warm welcome, dear friends, to the third session of the 27th day of the Global Festival of Yoga, celebrating wellness, that was started on the 21st of June. This program is being organized by Indica Yoga, and Indica Yoga is a platform dedicated to promoting authentic, immersive, and transformative teachings and practices from the yogic traditions. This platform is being headed by Dr. Vinay Chandra. I request you to please come on screen. So Dr. Vinay Chandra is also the co-curator of this festival, whom you have been seeing right from the start. He's had the immense privilege of growing up in a Gurukula, the Veda Vijnana Gurukula, which is headed by Dr. Ramachandra Bhatt, who spoke on one of our sessions earlier. He specialized in yoga and Vedanta. And besides that, he has recently played an important role as a consultant in the new national education policy that was framed. He has also been instrumental in the standardization of yoga terminologies that was commissioned by the WHO. We will get to hear more of him when he does his session on the Upanishads in the following week. But until then, I now hand over the mic to Vinaya to take on the session. Thank you, Vinaya.
Thank you, Anuradha ji. It's really been a wonderful journey so far. Today is the 27th day. We didn't know how the days have passed. And we are delighted to bring two friends from European Union of Yoga. I request Ms. Gabby Gillison and Sree Geza Timcak to kindly come on the screen, please.
Hi, Vinaya. Namaste.
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 Geza, can I request you to kindly come on the screen, please? Yes. Welcome to both of you.
Geza, you would have to unmute, please.
Yes, done. Yes.
I also would like to welcome all our participants who have joined us from across the globe this evening here in India. So welcome to each and every one. Today we have a very special session being led by Sree Geza Timcak. I request Miss Gabby Gillison to introduce Sree Geza. Most of you are already familiar with Gabby Gillison. She has been with us right from the very first day of the festival. She led a beautiful session on wellness at mind and body. So you can always revisit her session that is available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel. As you all know, she is the president of European Union of Yoga, which is a federation of more than 22 national yoga associations, and she's also the chairperson of Irish Yoga Association. She has contributed immensely to the growth of yoga teaching in Ireland and in Europe in general, and she specializes in yoga teacher training programs, which is a 4-year program under EUY. So with this very brief introduction, I now request Ms. Gabby Gillison to kindly introduce EUY and also the session and Mr. Geza Timcak. Over to you, Gabby.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm very privileged and honored to be introducing you to Geza Timcak today. We've been friends and colleagues for many, many years in the European Union of Yoga. I'd like to take this opportunity just to say a few brief words about the EUY and what it is, what it stands for, and then I will introduce Geza to you all. The European Union of Yoga was established in 1971 by Andre van Lisbeth and Gerard Blitz. The EUY represents a network of teachers, training schools, and, like Vinaya said, national federations, who are really, we come together because we share this commitment to preserving the essence of yoga, and also to guard the quality of yoga teacher training. We are a union that are made up of 22 federations. We have federations as far west as Ireland or Portugal, as far east as the Ukraine, Finland to the north, and Sicily in the south. We recognize a basic teacher training program, which consists of a minimum of 500 hours over 4 years of training. The training focuses on the knowledge, the skill, and the attitude required for people to become teachers of yoga. So this might seem a little bit excessive to many people, especially in the world we live in today, where there are so many shorter courses. But you know, yoga is a life-transforming practice, and I think that if you're teaching something as sacred as that, you know, it is a huge responsibility. So I just want to bring that across. The members of the EUY, we meet twice a year, once in a member federation country, and then we all come together in August in Switzerland to a little village in the European Himalayas, a little village called Zinal. And we've been doing this for over 48 years. and it brings together participants from many, many countries around the world. And we try to feature very well-known teachers. We've had very important swamis, prominent swamis over the years. TKV Desikachar even participated. And more recently, we've had people like Ravi Ravindra, Shradhalu Ranade, all teachers that you have experienced over this wonderful festival of yoga. So it's like a global community, I suppose. I think that's about all I'm going to say about the EUY. Obviously, sorry, I'll just add that obviously we can't get together in person in Zinal this year because of travel restrictions, because of COVID. So we are going to do an online, I think a 3-day online substitute for our Congress. So maybe afterwards I can give you details either about the EUY if you have any questions, or about the online program that we're going to be running at the end of August. But now I'd like to just say a few words about Geza. Geza is a retired professor at the Technical University. He's been a yoga practitioner since 1958. He's the chairman of the Association for the Advancement of Yoga in Kosice. He's the president of the Slovak Yoga Association and a founding member of the Savita Yoga International. Geza was only recently made an honorary member of the EUY in recognition for his years of service to yoga, not only in Europe, but around the world. I know Geza was, for a short while, the treasurer of the EUY, and I actually worked with Geza in organizing the annual Congress a few years ago. Sorry. Geza is the co-founder of the Spiritual Studies Journal, and he's the author of more than 100 papers on yoga, and the author of lots of yoga books as well. So with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Geza, and thank you very much for participating in the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank very much for Gabby's words, and all, also to the organizers, because it is a very laudable task to bring together so many people on the internet. And in our time when we are restricted somehow on this personal contact through the virus, which is now taken hold of our lives, so we are always oscillating between able to travel and not to be able to travel, and so on and so on. But I would like to start this presentation, which is a presentation which aims at showing you that that the Sree Chakra sadhana is a technique or a system which is already used for a couple of years, and it is based on this ancient set of texts which deal with the Sree Chakra. So in the following couple of minutes, I would like to introduce you to the essence of it. So before doing it, I would like to address one thing that in fact even though my first contact with the Sree Chakra and all the surrounding concepts was in 1977, but it was about 10, 15 years ago when I was again inspired when staying at one ashram in Rishikesh, in this Swami Ramasatadagrama, and Swami Vedavarati, when he was still alive, he had a very interesting way how to motivate you. That means he brought before you the task you had to do, and so I was since then trying to work all this inspiration into what we call now the Sree Chakra sadhana. Because it is a system which aims at really bringing this to the European or Western minded people, and because the original approach, which is very much based on devotion, on pujas, which is usually not really the case of the Westerners. So we had to look at the basic ideas, the basic concepts which are hidden in this system. Now, first of all, we have to admit that the mantras, especially the bija mantras of all the 9 levels to which we will shortly arrive at, we have to pronounce them correctly, because nowadays it's very often the case that people like some mantras, but they do not really use them in a way which they were designed to be used. So we also brought out a CD where there is a small brochure which tells about the essence of this sadhana and the correct pronunciation of the mantras which are involved. Now, I have to say that we had a lot of consultations before it could be brought out, because we had a need to really have it done properly. Now, coming back to the system which the Sree Chakra sadhana is actually representing. First of all, we have to admit that our life has this feeling that we have a free will, but it is relatively limited. So we know that we are born at a certain time to certain parents. We have to live under certain conditions which are given by space and time. So it's not that free. And there is another interesting element that there are the underperformance and overperformance. You know, there are some people, I also know some people who take the yoga practices so seriously, but seriousness is now in inverted commas, that they overload their system, and then they are a little bit disappointed that, oh, we are practicing so diligently and the result is not really what we expect it to be, but that's it. So we have to find the proper measure which our system is able to withstand, and this is the under and over performance and the area in between. And of course, there is also a way which we would call the dharma which we have. And in the moment when we depart from the ideal position, our ideal position in life, there is also something that we create in addition, which is not really always pleasurable, because we may have some errors in approach, errors in ways how we do things, how we respond, how we communicate, and all this creates something which we have to deal with later on. That when is this later on? This depends on so many things. It's difficult to consider, but this diagram which I'm sharing is showing just that we can exercise our free will within certain limits. And it's important that we always try to find the optimal way. It's easy to say, difficult to really follow. So sometimes when we are really pressed by our life situation, we may look like this old person who is not pessimistic, but it can be seen that really life didn't spare him of difficulties. Now, in order to be able to understand the system which we call the Sree Chakra sadhana, we have to also acknowledge that, okay, we have to work with a concept which is impossible to know by our mind, which is the absolute or the Brahman. And then there is this concept of Shakti, which means all the powers which create the universe as we see it and upkeeps it or takes it down. So there is also a concept which is called the 10 Mahavidyas, which are not, so to say, it's not really an easy concept because they are not behaving in a way as the systemic Shaktis like Parvati, Saraswati. So they are nice, they are really positively attuned to everything. But from the 10 Mahavidyas, we can see also some energies which the universe needs, but we not always like these energies because we do not really understand them. And then the Sree Chakra system acknowledges a lot of guardian principles. And this is very interesting because the classical way how it is handled is that you address the various guardian principles and try to appease them or ask for some help using this devotion or using various pujas. But we can also look at it from a different point of view. So when we look at this system of coming down from this Satchitananda, which is being, consciousness and bliss, then there is also an area where the Shaktis get activated. And that means that here we can understand, at least to a certain degree, that the energy of the sounds is actually have a formative influence, even though they are not always expressed in a way which we can easily comprehend. What do we understand by this? If we look at the Sree Chakra, we can see that at every point we have a guardian principle. If you look at it from under, we can see this is the inner space where, for example, it is very nice to mentally seat oneself during the practice. Now, because it has 9 levels, and every level has a very specific task to master, we have everything from the very basic personal responses to communication situations, life situations, up to the very top, which is just, let's call it samadhi or melting into the being, capital B. And so the 9 levels have very interesting names. The first one is really easily understandable. So this is the way how we are presented with the life around us, with the universe, with whatever we really are confronted with. And this is the key area which speaks about how to understand it properly. So the key is in our ahamkara. Now, ahamkara, sometimes it's translated as ego, but ego is only a very small part. Usually it is done that it is egoistic, so that means negative personality traits, which of course have to be at least managed. It's not easy to get rid of them because they are built in, and it is not easy even to recognize them. But when we have all these areas to master, to understand, then we need a support. And the support is given by the bija mantras of the various levels. And here we have to say that the mantra very often is considered to be a sort of melodic, likable, let's speak about text, because mantra can be just one syllable, mantra can be a word, mantra can be a sentence, a verse, or a whole book. And some people say that mantra has to be pronounced loudly. The other view is that it has to be done mentally. Then there's also a lot of other things. For example, a very important view is that if you repeat the mantra 100 times, it has always a little bit different effect. So we cannot be just doing it in a sort of routine way. We always have to melt into the inner vibrational energy of that mantra, which then can lead to a greater support than if we just repeat it mentally as any sentence we could get from. Now, the other thing is, which we have to know about the mantras, is that there are several levels of manifestation of the mantra. So if we speak about the usual way of pronouncing by your vocals, by using the air, it is the Vaikari form, which are the sounds which we actually use also for communication. But on the other hand, there is the Paravak, which is something which is almost latent in the absolute, where only a sort of blueprint of the actual sound pattern or energy pattern is before it gets formed. And then you have the Madhyama and Pashanti level of vibration. So it's becoming more and more perceptible. Now, in the Sree Chakra sadhana, this is going the other way around. So from the level which we can understand, we can hear, we can pronounce, slowly, step by step, we are trying to catch hold of this higher and higher or subtler and subtler aspect of that mantra. So, for example, the bija mantra, it is given an explanation, but it doesn't mean that this is what it means. So, fortunately, the bija mantras do not have a lexical meaning. It is a vibration which has certain effect on the human mind, and this is what is important from the point of view of the Sree Chakra sadhana also. So in the Sree Chakra sadhana we have certain tools and the tools are again tailored in such a way that they are applicable for people of various backgrounds. The general logic is that if we come, for example, to the first level of the Sree Chakra sadhana, then we get a lot of guarding principles which may be related to certain communication situations. For example, anger, gloominess, or other non-positive types of energy. And we may wonder, oh, why do the guardians represent such an energy? Because if we are suddenly having this feeling of gloominess or feeling of anger or disappointment, then we can either identify with it or not identify with it. And if we manage not to identify with it, it means that we can use the same amount of energy for another type of solution. So the first thing is to recognize that what actually is the proper way how to handle all these communication situations or personality traits. For example, chasing goal. So many times we are meeting people who would like to make other people to work or to do what they want. And so once we recognize that we have some traits, then we can work on them, and that means it stops producing us so the difficult after effects which we have to deal with later on. So the whole system of practices is shortly outlined in such a way that if we just try to recall a life situation, for example, the ability of being big, which is one of the siddhis, which is explained in the classical text that it is a protective power, so that you can become tall, very big, and or you can be very small, very little. But this is not really accessible to general practitioners, but we know about situations when at the actual situations we are not really performing very well. We have some fears, we have some insecurities in us, but at home or when we speak about it, suddenly we feel that we are very tall, and next time it happens, we will do a very proper way of handling the situation. So actually, virtually, we can become big. Sometimes the opposite things happen, that we are faced with a difficulty, with a challenging situation, and we can handle it in a great manner. Great manner means in such a way that we have a foresight, we have the energy, we have the right direction, and this is which helps us to be a sort of part of the solution and part of the problem. Now, this is, however, less frequent than the first mentioned example. And so, if we have a situation like this, which affects or affected our life in a sort of important way, then we have to change in our memory system the energy type which is linked to this situation. And for that, we have the mantras of the various levels of the Sree Chakra sadhanas. So the second step would be to master properly the mantra so that the energy is really vibrating there, using it in a way that we remember the event which we are working with, then we infuse it with this mantra of the given level, and then we start the next stage, which means we can adopt a specially selected asana during which we still remember the mantra, remember the situation, so are infusing still the situation. And why is it designed in such a way? Because the asana is a difficulty. I mean, to hold the position for, say, 5 minutes, depending on the type of asana, is not easy. And we can see that if we are still holding it, so we are preparing ourselves to be able to handle the situation which is similar to this one in a way that is, so to say, more effective, because already in a physically difficult situation, we were able to remember, to reinfuse it with the energy of the mantras. And then comes the pranayama, which is the pujas type of pranayama, where for the setting the lengths of the inhalation and exhalation, we use the lengths of this 3 bija mantras of the respective level. And then we have a short meditation, which then, so to say, let this soak into our mind. Now, the asanas are of different types, so going from one level to another level is a rather lengthy procedure, and we do good if we select those properties which you know that we have some problems with. So the best way how to work in the system is to see the list, select the properties which are most relevant to us, and work work on those. So there is a lot of things to be learned, especially I just would tell one example. During our teacher training program, we had also a short mention of this practice, and one of the participants, next time we met, told that we had at home with his wife a difficult situation, and he was just starting to inhale, to react in a sort of forceful way. But remember, oh, it may be that the guardians are testing me. So that little gap enabled him to reassess the situation, use the energies in a different way, and the result was that both sides were satisfied with the suggested solution. And this is the important thing, to have this small gap and the ability to infuse the situation with a proper type of energy in order to avoid situations or solutions which are not really good. That means if there is a conflict, then the conflict has after effects. You remember, you get it on the table next time you are having the same or similar situation. So to work with all these guardian principles is a very, very revealing process, and all those whom I know that they are working with this, they say that it is having a very positive effect, not only on their family life, communication at home, communication at the workplace, and so on. So the whole system is presented in a way that includes a lot of practice. The higher we go, the asanas, more and more of the sitting time. And it is also very important to notice that task, like you have a list of 14 nadis. Okay, first of all, to understand what a nadi is, that is not only the body, the pranayama kosha is also involved, and then you get usually the two endpoints, I mean the one and the second, and sometimes a hint that where does it go. Fine, but we also know, for example, in Geranda Samhita it is said that up and until all the nadis are freely passable, it is very difficult to expect some result to come out of our yoga practice. And so the Sree Chakra sadhana and the system which is described, for example, in Upanishad is working with this concept. Yes, we have to try to feel where the nadi goes, and if we can feel the difference, for example, after some months, because our communication strategies have changed, and that we are better able to manage our energies. That means we are not so tired at the end of the day. We are having a better working position. We have a better communication position. Then we will see that also the way how the energies are flowing through our system are actually perceptible. Now, there are the pranas, and you know, in the pranas, very often we just know, yes, okay, there are some 10 pranas, some systems say 14 pranas, some more, but the basic pranas are only 5. And if we understand that, for example, the ability to get in food, sound, light, that means image, whatever, which is linked to the prana, small prana from the 5, and if we can catch what is actually getting mobilized in me, when suddenly I'm able to get in, for example, just a mouthful of food. Now, the opposition is, you know, there are some people who cannot swallow, there are some people who cannot inhale, for example, some people with asthmatic problems, so they are not able to inhale. They are very afraid of exhaling because they fear that they will not be able to inhale. That means, aha, this is the function of the prana in this yoga anatomy, so to say, and physiology, but in the yoga sense, that these energies we can recognize in action. Apana, when we are able to give out things, for example, words, or there are other things we can eliminate from us. So everything which goes out has a sort of pre-activity. So we can actually recognize how this system of ours is actually functioning from the point of view of the pranas. So when we go to the even higher levels, then we are faced with a very interesting meditation problem or task, how to free ourselves from all the concepts which we consider as the usual ones surrounding us and which we consider normal or usual inside. And for example, at the beginning, we mentioned the various levels of the sound. We know that silence is the most potent speech if we can convey the information without words. But we can do it only if the mind conserves the energies and is able to convey the information even without words. All of us know that there are certain processes in us which cannot easily be conveyed in words, but we can have a sort of intuitive feeling that, yes, it may be like this or it may be like that. So when considering the whole system, so working with the personality traits, working with the events of our life, which had a sort of noticeable influence on the further aspects of our behaving, or directing ourselves in the life, and with the aspect that we can really realign or retune using the energies of the special Sree bija mantras, then apart from being able to recognize key factors from our life and key factors which influence our direct approach to our everyday situations, then we also can recognize that sometimes more principal things are to be solved. For example, being closed in our feeling of I am the body. This is also a very interesting concept, and how to get rid of it. We know that there is a number of philosophies and practices which tell you how to do it, but no matter which way one accepts or wants to pursue, it is always challenging, because we have to relax from the very basic reflexes. For example, there is a thought, there is an image, there is something, and I recognize it. But how to relax this? Well, this is a practice which is difficult within every frame of practice, and in the Sree Chakra sadhana it is also difficult. But what is difficult, it may be stimulating, it is surely not hopeless. And the asana, pranayama, and meditation, they are just support processes so that we are willing to handle also discomfort in our life. You see, the present civilization is very much oriented towards comfort. Oh, you don't walk, just use an electric motorcycle, car, or whatever. Or you don't do this, don't do that. There is a machine which will do it for you. But what is the result? The result is known to every one of us that it is not really good, because there is an increased number of various ailments which the civilization as such is a source of a lot of not only stress but stress related psychosomatic diseases. And we know also that people working physically are less prone to such diseases than people who work in a less demanding environment. They are working intellectually, because after all, we have to accept that the physical frame is also to be taken care of, and not only by, say, running a couple of kilometers or doing whatever workouts and so on, because there is also a need to link the inner endurance with the outer endurance within the conditions which are defined in yoga, in whichever yoga type we consider. And so we are undoing this reflex that we want to have a very easy life, without any problems, without any effort. And you know, there are two things which are nowadays not really light. One is the difficulty that we have to face. We have to be able and willing to face difficulties. Second, we have the feeling that the more we have, the more secure our future is. But completely is disregarded that point, that the less we have, in fact, the more we are able to experience from the life, because so to say, poverty, which is one of the basic ideas, for example, in sannyas, so that you let go everything which you have and you start to rely on outsourcing, so that it's what you beg, that you get, and to be able to be happy within such a circumstances, that you do not really own anything. You can own your own problems, but also your own energies. But this is something which we do not like to really consider. Now, the Sree Chakra sadhana is actually helping one to be prepared for this. If difficulty comes, for example, just like this COVID pandemics, suddenly all the freedoms were lost. We couldn't even travel outside the city. People were advised to stay at home. Fortunately, the shops were not really empty. But if the transport is also closed down, then we have to face the problem that, okay, how to survive under such conditions. If you are trained, if you are able to accept, okay, I have next to nothing, or I can reduce my needs to a minimum, then and still be happy and able to work home office or what, then you are better prepared for any event which can meet us on the way. So all in all, I think that what we experienced during the couple of years when this system was actually circulated and practiced by hundreds of people, that it became not only a sort of tool to anchor oneself into a stable, physically and psychologically into a stable position, and be able to be more careful about how we manage our energy situations, and how we manage our moods, how we manage our habitual reactions, how we manage all which is connected with our life. And so this is something which I find very rewarding. Not for me that much, me also, but rewarding for all those people who started it and are finding an interest in the Sree Chakra sadhana. Now, if I would have to sum up in a sort of short set of sentences what actually the Sree Chakra sadhana means to anyone who is about to practice it. So first, it is a very interesting and inspiring way not only to know ourselves, our let's say the personal states, the ways how we react to life situations, ways how we react to ourselves, how we look at ourselves, how we are willing or not willing to cooperate with others, in what way. So all these very modern processes are still there in the ancient system of Sree Chakra and then Sree Chakra sadhana, which is based on this ancient system. And in this way, we start having a higher life quality, which is a sort of word which can be understood in a number of ways. But basically, if one is more happy, more able to really enjoy life in the proper sense, because after all, every system is formed in such a way that lives become more enjoyable or more fulfilling in spite of the challenges we have to face. So that is about what I wanted to say. And so if there are any questions, I will be happy to respond to them.
Thank you very much, Geza. There are a few questions. If I could start with probably the most common question is that, will you be sharing the PowerPoint? Because it looked very interesting and at some points you went over the slides quite quickly. So I think people are quite keen to know if you'll be sharing the PowerPoint.
Of course, yes. I think it would be more practical to share it in a PDF format. And naturally, yes, because it is prepared for all those who participated in this presentation.
Great. And I know Anu Rada wants to ask some questions as well, but maybe I'll just do the kind of practical questions. Somebody was asking if you could suggest some reading material where they could investigate into this a little bit more themselves.
Sure. At the end of the presentation, there is the list of resources. So if I will share it, and I will, then at the end there is the list of further readings in the subject.
Great, thank you for that, Geza. Thank you. There was one thing that I was curious about, and I see somebody else picked up on it as well. Was the different types of asana. Puja is saying, what are the asanas associated with each of the deities, the goddesses? The slides were skipped. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure. Actually, the asanas are associated with the guardian principles, and the logic behind it is that every guardian principle represents a certain type of energy, and the asanas are selected in such a way that this type of energy is more easy to understand, but not by thinking, but through feeling. So this is what the selection of asanas actually means. So there is about 56 asanas related to this practice, apart from the sitting asanas, Padmasana, Siddhasana, and similar sitting positions. And all of them are selected in such a way that the effect of staying with the asana makes it easier to feel the actual quality of the gardening principle and its relation to our own personality trait.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers some of the questions. Yeah, you just got me thinking about, about the asana practice, because as you said, like we tend to be creatures of comfort, and this is really what COVID has challenged for many of us. But I do know, like even in an asana practice can become like a comfortable practice, just doing the practices that resonate with you or that you prefer.
Yes, so it is. Naturally, if you are flexible enough and are willing to endure, then it is, but you have to get to that point. Usually, when people get to asanas, again, there are some people with hypermobility. For them, the asana as such is not a problem, but understanding the asana, so have the feeling, not just the actual position, that takes some time. And here it is combined with the reflection. So, because mentally you attune to the resonation of the mantra, you still keep the situation which you take as an archetype of that situation. For example, situation when you was confronted with a sort of you becoming angry. I will tell you an example which is not related exactly to the asanas, but when I was staying at the Imperial College quite a lot of time ago, once in the weekend on Saturday, I went to the university to make our research. And I was quite sort of satisfied with myself because, I could have gone for a walk or whatever, but I went to work on the research, and suddenly the guard stopped me that, sorry, do you have a permit? What type of permit? I'm doing my research. No. Since a couple of days, you had to have a permit. So you see, the first thing is what a sort of not anger, but dissatisfaction was building on me. I was just about to argue with this man, but I said, no, that's not the way. So I noticed that he had a Polish accent. So I said, oh, I'm Polish. Because I speak Polish a little bit, so I could talk. Within 5 minutes, we have been friends. He was telling me this and that, and said, okay, this time you can go, but please do arrange for your permit. So this is it. I mean, when you feel that you should really be stressing your rights, but instead you look at the situation and do not identify with this process, and the result is that you get through. Now with the asanas, it is a little bit similar, because when we get into an asana, which is at the beginning not necessarily pleasant, because after a while, a couple of minutes, you feel pain here, there, and there, and you still have to have your mind focused, relax all what has to be relaxed. So it is also a part of this training, how to enjoy life even through difficulties and well, let's say unpleasant things, but it's not unpleasant, it's just difficult.
Challenges. I would love to ask you about the recitation of some of the mantras, but I think I'm going to hand over to Anu at the moment, and I think Anu has some questions to ask. So I'll just hand over to her for a moment.
Thank you very much, Geza.
You're
That
welcome.
was, yes, that was, I think, I think many of us have heard a lot about the Sree Chakra and the Sree Yantra also, but we don't really know the applications of this in our personal lives. So your presentation has helped us feel closer to this entire Vidya in certain ways. And I was just wondering also that, do you need a certain eligibility to be worthy of this knowledge? What is the eligibility to get initiated into this knowledge? Because it is quite a profound knowledge tradition.
Well, my experience is that your interest is making your, in a way, eligible. And, you know, if you are not really eligible, you will not be able to do the practices because you will get bored. So if you do not feel that there is something which is pulling you, it's interesting because I see the result and I see that and I feel that it is good for my understanding myself and my life, then yes, you are getting qualified. Now, very often at certain stage, you, for example, have another level of needs. For the last, say, 10-15 years, we have been traveling to this Swami Rama Sadhana with, unfortunately, well, not unfortunate, but with always a greater amount of people, greater number of people. And all of them were already practicing the Sree Chakra at home, at their home cities, whether the Czech Republic, Hungary, or Slovakia. And at one point, they said, okay, but they would like to get an initiation to our personal mantra. So that means if you get prepared, suddenly there is a need. And the result is sometimes really very, very surprising. There was a lady, a Hungarian lady, whom I knew from our summer courses, and this was one of the very, very unpleasant ladies in a sense that, okay, I don't want this food, I want that food. Oh, this is not good, that is not good. Please do something about the food because I'm unhappy and so on. When at the end of the course we had a sort of farewell session, her jokes were really so that some people get blushed because it's very, very sort of kinky type of jokes. Now, when she had been the first time in the ashram, then she said that she also would like to get the mantra. Next year, I couldn't recognize her. At the summer course, she was kind. She never criticized the food, and she really made very nice contribution to these final sessions. And this is, it is 2 years ago. So even this year, because that course is already over, she stayed a very kind person. That's a miracle. Everyone was like, oh, she is going with you. Well, I don't envy you. That's a horrible thing. I said, well, what can we do? I mean, if she wants to come, I'm no one to refuse her this possibility. And the result was really very, very unexpected. So this is what makes you qualified, that you practice, you open up, you meet the next stage, and you go on.
So can I, Gabby, just one addition to that is that what about the ego then? Because these practices also can develop the ego in terms of, you know, they give you certain powers, all these tantric practices.
Yeah.
So how does one balance that?
Well, here it is the opposite way, because if you recognize the various aspects, well, I would speak about ahamkara, because ahamkara is more than just the ego, so to say, as concept-wise. So if you can read the various databases which put into your feeling of yourself, your reactions, the information from various parts of your past and history, far past, then if you understand it and if you understand the consequences, you know, if we would know all the consequences of all our deeds, the world would be different. Because usually we... So, and if you get educated or trained in such a way that you recognize this effect of this thought, this emotion, this feeling on your future being and the future state of your environment, the family, the workplace, people around you, then you become wiser. And so this is it, that it doesn't really build in you any sort of egoism that you are the great practitioner, but on the other hand, no, on the contrary, it gives you an insight that, aha, this is how I was. I'm not really satisfied, but okay, I will work on it in this, and this way. So the result is not that you feel very strong in a, so to say, sit away, that you have so many abilities to, I mean, force your views on others, make people do what you want, and you recognize it. I mean, there is one lady who said, yes, that's my case. I want to chase everyone at my workplace. Yes, they have to do what I want. Now I see that it's not really good. So what to do? You see, so it is becoming a recognition of that property of your personality and teaches you how to reattune it, because you can do it in a kind manner. And if you realize that if you push people, it can be done, but the reaction is not always optimal, because you know, it's like scolding someone. Yes, you can scold him or her, but if you communicate in such a way that the other person realizes the error which he or she made, then it's a different thing. And then you say, okay, sorry, yes, I will do it. And it's not a sort of doing under pressure. So this is the wonderful thing about, and this is what attracted me also to this, that all these guardian principles, if you conceive, you know, if you consider it just a continuum of various mental states and dispositions, and suddenly you are put into a situation and there comes a sort of impulse. Oh, do it like this. You say, okay, I know it can be done this way, but if there is this gap, so the little time to not to think but reflect, is not a long way, a short way, and not reacting just impulsively, but you know that yes, it could be done in usual way, but try to see, for example, you may be prompted to ask the other person that why he or she does or doesn't do this or that. So you start developing, I mean, using the same energy in a different way. And I think this is what people at any period of development, at any time, at any place actually need. And so this is what really made me happy about this system, yes, which I didn't invent. I mean, it is already known, but usually it is done on a puja and devotional way, which for the Westerners are not so attractive, because it doesn't really lie that deep in their own culture.
I was going to ask a different question, but maybe following on what you've just said, Geza, and somebody was asking, like, who is the author of this particular sadhana, and what is the purpose? Is it, you know, for the like stress management, emotional, mental wellness, or is there that ultimate spiritual end of moksha?
Yes, of course. Yes, the 9th level is already moksha, but it would be nice to be already there, but it's not so easy. Yes, so the Bhavana Upanishad is a text which contains all the information, basic information about this system. Now, Professor Rao was a person who developed the subject into a sort of system with explanations. And at the end of the presentations, there are other sources which deal with this subject. Now, I would say that, like in yoga in general, it has a structure. That means first we have to understand what are our own personality traits, how to deal with them, how to develop them in a positive way. And we, when we have already mastered this, then we come to understand our other systems like the nadis, like the pranas, and so on. And then you come to the next level when using all these already done practices, we can come closer and closer to making our inner experience more and more subtle, up to the point when at the 8th and 9th level we are in principle close to the state of moksha or mukti or jivamukti, provided we are successful in the whole training. So it's difficult to say who is the actual author of this technique. You have a number of books, Srilaita Sahasranama Stotra and other Saundarya Lahari and other texts which deal with it, but they do not deal with it in the way as it is defined here, and they are more based on the pujas and devotional approach to the same subject, and in this way somehow outsourcing the actual process. You know, it is also my experience that if you have a very able Brahmin, a pujari, and if he does a puja, it has a perceptible effect on him, but it fades away in a couple of months because you have outsourced the problem, and it didn't really solve the problem permanently or in a way that you can actually have a proper management of that personal fate because you outsourced it, and therefore you rely on some external help, which is nice, but after all, sooner or later you will have to return to it and get it resolved yourself. But it's a system which takes you from the very beginning, getting acquainted with yourself, with your personality traits and reactions, reactional patterns through your subtler system, meditation, and so on, up to the very point when, if you become qualified, then of course the moksha is also natural culmination of this sadhana.
Thank you, Geza. I suppose that process of getting to know yourself, or maybe svadhyaya, that you would probably need guidance in that. You probably couldn't do that journey on your own.
Yes, usually it is so that you need some support, and it's very rare that one is able to manage oneself, but fortunately, even now, there is, for example, interesting that page, the man blunder, that Mr. Ravi is, Sri Ravi is really a very experienced knower of the whole traditional way of understanding the Sree Chakra and all the aspects which are related to it. And I mean, if you are lucky and find the proper ashram where you can really develop the subject, then you are again having a very strong support. So it is again depending on whether you are willing to look for some support on this way, and it usually happens.
Right. I'd like to just ask one more question, and I'll pass over to Anuradha then. Maybe I'm going to combine maybe two questions into one again. One is from Raghavan, and one is from Ramachandra. I think you said yourself, Geza, that it is a very practical system. But they're asking, number one, where do I start? And number two, is this sadhana like a completely separate practice, or is it something that you can combine maybe with a practice that you're already doing yourself?
Well, it depends what you are already doing. So it's very difficult to understand in an abstract manner, but where to start? Well, again, the easiest way to start is to find a place where it is being taught and start with the basics, and the materials for it are available. So the only thing is you have to know the algorithm, how to read them, I mean how to put them into the practice. And there is no person who is actually interested in such practices who is not qualified enough to start. And therefore, we start from the point where we are just now, and it is something which will just guide us through which type of personality traits would I like to work with, so that they are optimized and they are not really an obstacle in my life, but they will become a sort of support of my process of life. So there is also a publication which is dealing with it, but it is just a course material, so it would need someone who actually introduces the actual way how the materials to be used. But if you get hold of, for example, the Bhavanopanishad or the basic work of Mr. Rao on this subject, then you can very easily translate it from this traditional way to a practical way. So you just look at the property of the guardian principle and you see, is it something which I also experience in my life? So is it a part of my personality or no, but the next one is. So this is where we start from. We start from the point where we are just now. And so that's the answer to this question.
Yeah, Geza.
Yes.
There was another question that was by Ramakrishnan ji. Because he spoke of pujas, and you come from a culture where these pujas are not a spontaneous part of your culture. So when people are trying to present certain of these traditions, sometimes there is a tendency to sterilize these practices of these pujas. So Ramakrishnan ji is saying that I never cease to be surprised at the attempts to make these practices puja free, cater to some people who might not, be in tune with these philosophies and practices. But he says that ISKCON has shown that people from different cultures are not necessarily hostile to this practice. So, and he's saying that down to dressing and feeding the deities. So there are a lot of details in these rituals. So why is there sometimes this? Why, in your opinion? So I will modify his question a little bit. So one part is that why is there this requirement to make these practices puja free? And secondly, as somebody who is not directly from the Indian culture, how do you help people connect to these pujas?
Well, you see, I will try to answer the first part of the question. So that which attracted me to this system was exactly that the principles which are included, they are such that they have an absolutely general appeal. So that means even, underline, even without pujas, you find there a very valuable tool to work with your whole understanding of life, your own life, not just the general life, but your own life. And even a puja cannot free you from working with your own personality. So the puja is, as I say, an outsourcing. So, okay, I do the puja, but in the puja, I address the guiding principle or the deity or the patron of the actual process. Now, it's maybe my shortcoming, but I've never met a person who just by pujas really achieved all the goals of, say, the Sree Chakra system. I met a lot of people who made wonderful pujas. Really, you could feel that it is working, but then in real life, they had the same problem as before, because the puja is a sort of expression of sharing what you have, expression of your devotion, which is very nice, but it doesn't really solve the actual problem. So there may be also, but I think for that we would need an Indian person, a person from the Indian culture, who would do both. Work on the personality traits and including the pujas, because it's not that it's against pujas, just it doesn't require the pujas to happen, because it is translated as a process of inner development and understanding, and it is, so to say, a standalone system, because my personality is always there. I can try to understand it better and better, and I can use the tools which are offered there. And if I understand that the life situations are really very often, or nearly always, or perhaps always, testing anyone included in this process, now under these conditions, what will you do? What will you think? What emotions will you develop? So remembrance of the principles, that means putting them into practice, is, I think, is undeniable from the spiritual development part of the whole system. And if you have the ability and you have the understanding of the pujas and you like them, there is no obstacle. But I mean, in Europe, it is not really something which people would be able to use. So this is the answer to this question, yes.
Yeah, we're very grateful for your insight, and it's a very vast topic. Gabby wanted to ask you something more.
Mm-hmm.
Just to balance all the intellectual,
Yes.
I would personally love to, maybe and I know this is not the most amazing medium for this, but if you could share some of the mantras with us, or some kind of practical element, that would be wonderful.
Yes. So yes. I hope the Lord of Mantras will not punish me, because I don't have the best type of microphone, and this is not really the best way how to do the mantra, but but why not? So I just would like to prepare a little bit of the actual process. So if we just recognize that the Sree Yantra is having this squarish base with 4 entrances, and if we realize that this is the area where the basic personality traits are being encoded, and this is through which we are tested, and, so to say, we have the ability to walk into this next structure, which is a 3 concentrical circles, when our selected properties, the personality properties, are already being understood and revised in such a way that they do not represent an obstacle. So if we then just try to imagine a square with 4 gates, and then concentrate on the first set of mantras, which is am, so. So if we are just sitting, then we just can close our eyes and join in So. 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 And you can also try to feel where does this mantra resonate in you. So reciting the mantras is a key element of the practice. So that would mean that we would have to say adapt one of the practices, which would include also recollection of a life situation, and say we can try to do also that if you think that we have time for this. So just imagine this one property of our personality, that online we may not be able to satisfy the needs of the situation, but offline we feel that the next time we will be big and strong, and we will deal with it without any problem. So anyone who really wants to join in, then just try to remember an important situation where you have been faced with a challenge which was not going really very well. So you couldn't find the proper answers, you have been a little bit afraid, finally you have been on the suppressed state, so it didn't go well. But when you went at home, then in your mind, suddenly you felt that next time I will do it this way, that way, or better, and I will be stronger, I will not let other people rule me, and so on and so on. And this is the contrast of the first practice. So if we just remember this or such situation where online we didn't perform well, it had a ill effect on our life, and offline we felt that next time we will do it, but usually it is not enough. So this is the seeming ability to become big or large. Now we'll do just a very simple process practice, leaving out the asana because I don't know whether I also don't have the ability to do the asana here. So if we are ready with this selection of situation, then we keep it before our mental eye, and then start first repeating loudly the mantra of the first level of the Sree Chakra sadhana, and we, so to say, beam this energy of the mantra into the situation, so that the quality of it ceases to be of this defeat type of quality of energy, but it becomes a sort of purified one, which is not suppressing us anymore. So keeping in our mind this situation, we now can start the mantra recitation aloud, and then we come to a silent recitation. Soha. 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 And now we turn to a silent recitation. Basically, we can take the position which we are in, a sort of asana, and just continue mentally reciting the mantra, but in such a way that you feel that the inner resonation or the vibration of the mantra is still preserved. So it's not just a sort of mechanically repeated set of 3 bija mantras. And let the vibration of the mantra penetrate the whole body, or at least try to feel that which are the parts of your body and mind which are actually resonating with the mantra. Under usual training conditions, this has to be done at least for 5 minutes. And then we turn to the next part, which is the Ujjayi pranayama, which means we narrow the epiglottis and start inhaling and exhaling in such a way that the length of the inhalation and exhalation is regulated by the length of the mantra. So, for example, 1 length, 1 repetition inhalation, 2 repetitions exhalation. And finally, just relax the breathing and just a short meditation where this working space of mind, this Chittakash, is filled with the mantra of the first level of Sree Chakra sadhana. And then just relax the mantra from your mind. Just try to follow up all the steps which we have taken. This is a little bit abridged version of it, but essentially this is how the structure of the practice is being done and being kept.
Thank you, Geza, for the practice and also for the mantras. There was also a related question, which is part of the earlier question which Gabby had asked. This is from a friend, Yana Mikshikova, who has connected with us on Facebook. She was asking, does one need initiation to the practice of this sadhana because it uses mantras and all these meditations as a part of the sadhana? Kindly let us know, guide us on that, on this. Do we need an initiation?
Well, again, it depends. Usually, under European conditions, you do not really have the possibility of getting an initiation into this system. So you would take it that the initiation is happening when you start sincerely the actual practice. Under Indian conditions, I'm sure that getting initiated into the actual mantras would help a lot, because that would make that would attract a lot more of the power of the mantras. Yes.
So, like, can they consider this as an initiation if someone has not been into it, and can they start practicing from this point onwards?
Yes. You know, under European or Western conditions, you do not really have another opportunity, because where would you get? I mean, even in India, it's not easy to find a person who is really qualified for it and who would be willing to share with that person. But we found what I've already tried to say, that after you make your own personal effort, at one point, suddenly the actual situation changes in that way that you get the opportunity to get initiated, and that from that point of view you have also that bonus. But for a start, in our conditions, you have to rely on your own inner guidance, and this is what the system is actually enabling you. Because I mean, on the CD or in the courses, we learn how to properly pronounce it, and that means that you are able to do it. And the moment you feel that you are attracted to it, that means you get a sort of inner consent. Yes, this is something which will do well with you. If you feel, oh, it's not really like a cup of tea, or I don't really like the mantras, or the whatever, then go away, because it doesn't really resonate, do not resonate with you.
Thank you very much for that clarification and the guidance, because many people have this question. And in fact, as you said, being perceptive to that inner call, I think that is the sort of an initiation that one needs to be open to.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you very much for that. I'll go for one more question, but before that, we have many people who are sharing their compliments and also expressing their gratitude. And I also see Honorary, who has joined us, and he says, "Hi Geza, Hari Om. Happy to see you here. Do receive my affection and warm hugs, Andre."
Thank you. Thank you very much. The same to him. Yes.
So, if I may ask, how did your journey begin? And you also bring groups to India, you take them through rigorous rituals and practices also. What has been your experience?
Well, you see, as Gabi already mentioned, I was able to start yoga in 1958, which is relatively soon. But fortunately, my mother was doing yoga, and my father was very much in this Oriental philosophy and so on. So when we had long walks, because we had a long walk, you are a small guy, big guys having many steps ahead of you. So I always ask philosophical questions. And so he had to stop. I had to relax. And so we started a sort of very interesting years of dialogue. So in 1958, I was able to start systematically to practice yoga. I mean, all the aspects of yoga, starting with asanas and pranayama and meditation. And so this is how it happened. Now, after 1948, in our area, you know, we have been put into the challenge of this communist era, and it was really a very difficult period, because yoga was considered to be a philosophy of the enemy, because it was not materialistic, and so on and so on. So it was a sort of underground movement, and we had to type the samizdat type of book, so translated, and on typewriters, the sixth copy was already unreadable and so on. So, but later on, it became a little bit more easy. It's still not easy, because now we have a sort of very interesting opposition from the Christian religions, which is curious because, you know, in the present world, naturally I would seek some allies. Oh, this is also helping people. I'm also trying to help people in the spiritual way. Fine, so let's work together. But the reality is not so easy. So even a couple of weeks ago, there was a sort of clash of opinions, but that would be too long to speak about. I mean, nationwide. But the groups which come to India, there are people who just want to get the ashram experience. You know, from morning till evening, you are always having some program in this Samarama Sadhana, and that means that within a couple of days or a week and a half, you get into a different type of inner mood, so to say. And so there are still some people who suffer a little bit because they consider it's a little bit of cutting their freedoms that they have to from morning till evening. But other people say it's wonderful. The end result is that I've never had a case of people complaining, oh, it was not for us. No, it's no good, no good. On the contrary, they repeatedly go when, and you know, now with this crisis, it's also a financial crisis. I don't know whether India will be open next January, February. I hope yes, but the groups which started as 2 and 3 people, it was easy because you know well the people and so on. But now this year it was about 32 people. That's a little bit difficult if you want not just to let them be, but work together with them, and so try to really even if we went to places, really power places, Chandrabadni or Devprayag and these places, some people really suddenly came to us inner feeling how this energy is actually working. Now, that was something which cannot be emulated in Europe. So it's a unique experience. Which had to be had if you undergo this long trip and go there and experience it, so that you align, because not everyone can align to this experience. But there are those who get it and the others get inspired. Oh, yes. So in this way, even though it is not really easy, because it's a lot of work, it's half a year of work and 2 weeks of results, or 3 weeks of results, yes.
But thank you so much for sharing this experience, and also to let us understand and appreciate, if yoga has become so popular today, various historical phases it went through. I mean, despite the difficulties, the challenges that you faced, yet that strong commitment to this whole knowledge kept you going. And today, you have a whole association dedicated in Slovakia and many other places. So it's really heartening to see that. Thank you very much for sharing your personal journey.
Thank you.
And also it's heartening to see what you shared about the transformation that people undergo when they visit here. Like, despite all the years of practice and their learnings, yet coming to India and going through this whole journey, it's a pilgrimage, and the transformation that it leads to. I think that was a very beautiful and positive note with which we can bring the session to close. Anuji, you want to say something?
Now, I was just saying that the questions that have been asked are very, very interesting. But due to the paucity of time, we would like to extend our apologies to all the participants and request them to get in touch with you to get many of them answered. Like you spoke about places which have natural energy, which are natural energy centers. So Sarika ji had this question that, you know, under the sea, there is said to be a point which is which has the energy of the Sree Chakra in Oregon, etc. So there are many interesting questions and questions that are very directly related to sadhana that you spoke of. But it's unfortunate that all these good things have to come to a pause, if not to an end, because as I said earlier, that lectures like yours and many of the presentations that we have been graced with on this platform are not one-time lectures that you listen to. One needs to go back to them, one needs to advance on one's own path and then fall back on them and see what one has inculcated from them. So wonderful as always, Geza, to be in your satsanga. We just find that it's a privilege to share your presence with the audience who have been on this Mahayatra since the 21st with us. So extremely grateful to all of, to everybody here, and also to the Divine Mother. She seems to be in the atmosphere. And also, since yesterday, Yogi Maheshwaraji spoke about her in a very concrete manner. And there seems to be the presence also of a lot of masters that have enabled us to undertake this yogathon, as my father rightly called it. So we just pray that all of you keep blessing us and that we stay motivated to keep trying to discover individuals, practices that can act as important milestones on our personal journeys. Because while we can go out and try and change the world, I think applying it on one's own life and making that one difference there is what will actually increase the Sree, which means wealth in all kinds, beauty. Thank you, Geza.
So it is. Thank you very much. I'm also happy that I have been given the possibility to share some of the thoughts. And indeed, you know, a lecture is a lecture and experience is experience.
But you did give us something at the end with a mantra.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You know, these mantras are very special because they're simple. You don't have to think about them, but they are very powerful if you really attune to them.
So
Thank
Vinay,
you very much. Yes?
not at all. Now I was asking Vinay if he would like to make the announcements. And if you could, Geza, please let our participants know how they could reach out to you. So would you like to put it, would you like to type it out, or you have it on your presentation?
Yeah, this is, I will just share the screen again.
We'll be making the announcements. Yeah.
And let Geza share it and you can come back.
Yeah, so this is it. So this is my email address, and this is the webpage of the Slovak Yoga Association. So that's it.
Geza, if we can just add,
Yes.
and all to our participants as well.
Yes.
We had this session for this evening, and we didn't plan it specifically, but the way it emerged, like today is the Friday evening of a month, lunar month called Ashadha. So Ashadha Masa, Ashadha month, and Friday is a very auspicious occasion for Devi Upasana, and it just happened.
Yes, you see. This is how life brings things together.
So may I now request Kotiji to kindly present us with the next day's program. And then we'll get back to you, Geza.
Yes, thank you.
So on the 28th day of the festival, we have with us Dr. Matthias Cornelissen, who will be leading the session tomorrow morning. He is a teacher at Sree Aurobindo International Center of Education, and is also the founder of Indian Psychology Institute in Pondicherry. It's a very special institute which is dedicated to integrate the psychological thought that is there in the Indian thought, and especially in Sree Aurobindonian writings, into modern day psychology. And he will be presenting on yoga in the context of an ongoing evolution of consciousness. Even Dr. Matthias comes from a very interesting background. He is basically a trained doctor, medical doctor, and with inspiration, he walked all the way, hitchhiked all the way to India in 60s. And then since then, he has been in India, dedicated his life for the cause of Indian knowledge systems. So he will be presenting before us tomorrow morning. And in the noon, we have a dear friend from Hungary, which is the neighbor country of Slovakia, from where we had Geza today. That is Melinda Foldine Eritel, who is an assistant professor at Dharma Gate Buddhist College in Budapest. And she will be presenting on Satipatthana meditation as an opportunity for Santosha. Santosha is a very important practice of the niyamas in the Yama Niyama Ashtanga sequence, and a particular Buddhist approach called Satipatthana meditation is what she will be presenting us, both the theoretical and the practical aspects of it. In fact, Geza, she is also one of your students. She considered you as one of her teachers. And then in the evening, we have a very interesting presentation on 7-layer therapy, a holistic approach to lifelong well-being by Sri Ravi Manthaji. Ravi Manthaji is a very popular figure. He is a holistic healer, health activist, and the co-founder of Sage Sustainable Living and Baby Elephant Permaculture Farm. In fact, his book, Baby Elephant Diet, is quite popular in the pop culture, which suggests the right ways of eating, the right approach to nutrition. And he will be with us tomorrow presenting on 7-layer therapy, a holistic approach to lifelong well-being. So do stay with us, connect with us, and continue this journey for the next 10 or 15 days. The festival has been extended up to 31st July. So with this,
Yes.
now
I just wanted to, Vinay, if I may add,
Yeah.
Geza, there are people who are asking for the books you were referring to. So you spoke of Swami Veda Bharati's book, and you were also referring to Rao. What is the
Yes.
book that you were referring to? Could you kindly let us know? And Vinay, if you could kindly type that in.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it is here.
And also I'd like to mention about the presentation and the videos.
Yes. Geza, one more thing. Your website, is it saj.sk or AK?
You mean the Rao? SKR, yes.
SK.
Rao SKR.
That's the name of the book.
No, it's the name of the author. The book is Sree Chakra, is Yantra, Mantra, and Tantra.
That is the book by Professor
Rao.
Rao, who
Yes.
was one of the leading personalities, a scholar from Bangalore, who was
Yes.
a scholar, who was a trained person in psychotherapy, as a linguistic scholar, and who has authored many books and translated many books from Sanskrit, the Vedas, to English. So
Yes.
one of the great personalities of our recent times. So that is his book that Geza has been referring to.
And
Yes.
one book about from Swami Veda Bharati. Was there a book also by Swami?
Yes, the Sri Vidya. He was having a small book on Sri Vidya, yes.
Is Dominic Cotto from France, very dear friend. We also have Maria Serdan from Spain, who's wanting to get your contact, wanting to get hold of the PowerPoint presentation. So maybe we could put up the PDF as
Yeah, I just wanted to mention this regarding the PowerPoint presentation. Since we had more than 200 participants who had connected with us on various platforms, it would be difficult for us to mail it to you. But what we could do is we can put it up on our website. There is one page dedicated to Geza's session. So there is a particular page for this particular event. So in that we can give the link to the document and all of you can download it from there. So I think that is the easiest way where you can reach out to us. Our website is www.indicayoga.com. It's very simple, indicayoga.com. In that you find a particular page called festival, and if you go there, you can find all the events. Each event, there is a dedicated page. Each session, there is a dedicated page, and there we can provide you with the links there. And also for those who have joined us today, to let you know that all these sessions are being recorded and they are available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel for free. So please make use of them. Please share with your friends. You might want to revisit them because each one has shared their 3 decades, 4 decades of their learning, their insights and their experiences. So you definitely want to go back to them and listen to them. So please make use of the resources available to you.
I had this interesting combination that came in my head: share and spread Sree. So with that, I think, Geza, if you would like to please give us a word of advice or anything that you would like to leave the participants with.
You see, the easiest thing to do is to give people good advices, but it's always the challenge to get them through into our life. So what I would really love to wish all the participants is that they discover the motivation to work on their own inner development. And you see what I try to present in this short presentation is one of the ways, but yoga is so rich. Whichever way they want really to proceed, the main thing is that they start, they persevere, and if they are really qualified for the last step, I wish that all of them would reach the highest stage of consciousness.
Do we say dzień dobry?
That's Polish, yes. But dobry dzień would be in Slovak, yes.
Thank you very much again.
You are most welcome. Thank you. I'm so happy to see you again. Yes.
We look forward to your association with Indica Yoga in the other programs to come.
Yes, yes. We have it on our web pages, so I'm sure that people will join. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shubha Dinam, Shubha Ratri.